The words had been a shield and a cage. Let's just keep it casual. Clara had replayed Maya's sentence in her mind for 2 months and 11 days. She had analyzed its cadence, the slight, almost imperceptible tremor in Maya's voice when she had said it, the way she had refused to meet Clara's eyes, focusing instead on a loose thread on the duvet cover. It was a sentence meant to provide an exit strategy, a no-fault clause for an arrangement that felt anything but casual to Clara. It was a knife, disguised as a key. A knife that Clara had willingly accepted, pressing it into her own sternum because the alternative, nothing at all, was unthinkable. For 3 years, Maya had been the unwavering center of Clara's universe. Her best friend. The person whose laughter was a physical warmth, whose presence in a room was like the sun breaking through clouds. And for 2 of those years, Clara had been hopelessly, silently in love with her. She had become an expert in the art of suppression, a master of the supportive smile while her own heart was quietly fracturing. She had listened to every detail of Maya's relationship with Liam, offering advice that felt like swallowing glass, nodding along while every word about him was a fresh twist of that blade she held so close. Then Liam was gone. Not in a dramatic explosion, but a slow, sad fizzle. Maya had shown up at Clara's apartment, her eyes swollen, her usual vibrant energy snuffed out, leaving a hollowed, fragile shell in its place. Clara had held her, just held her, for hours on the sofa, breathing in the familiar scent of vanilla and sandalwood and pushing down the selfish, triumphant beast that roared in the lowest pit of her stomach. A week later, nestled in that same safe space of Clara's sofa, surrounded by the soft glow of a single lamp, Maya had said the words. She had been talking about loneliness, about touch, about the yawning void Liam had left. But her eyes, when they finally lifted to meet Clara's, were not just sad. They were searching. Curious. I've wondered, Maya had whispered, her voice barely a sound. What it would be like. With a woman. With you. Hope was a violent, terrifying thing. It had surged through Clara with the force of a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. Before she could speak, before she could do anything but stare, Maya had rushed to build the walls back up. Nothing serious, of course, she'd added quickly, a nervous laugh catching in her throat. God, no. I'm a mess. I can't do serious. But, just to see. You know? Let's just keep it casual. And Clara, the patient, supportive friend, had heard the unspoken plea beneath the clumsy words. A plea for comfort, for safety, for a place to land without commitment. So she had agreed. She had nodded, forcing a calm she did not feel, and in doing so, had agreed to her own exquisite torture. She had stepped into a ghost's life, one where she could touch but not hold, kiss but not claim, exist in a state of suspended intimacy that was both everything she had ever wanted and a constant, aching reminder of what she could not have. Their nights together blurred into a strange new rhythm. Sometimes it was purely physical, a desperate, clumsy exploration in the dark that left Clara feeling hollowed out afterward, as if she'd given away pieces of herself she could never get back. But more often, it was something else entirely. Something softer and far more dangerous. It was Maya, crawling into Clara's bed not for sex, but for solace. She would curl into Clara's side, her head fitting perfectly in the curve of Clara's shoulder, and they would just lie there. Maya's breathing would deepen, her body would relax, and she would murmur things into the quiet of the room. Liam never did this, she'd said one night, her voice thick with sleep. He never just held me. Not without it being a prelude to something else. It was like he didn't know how to just be still. Clara's arm, wrapped around Maya's waist, tightened instinctively. A bitter, ironic taste filled her mouth. She was providing the comfort Liam never could, acting as the perfect counterpoint to a failed relationship, all under the guise of being casual. The line was blurring, the edges of their careful arrangement fraying with every shared breath, every quiet confession. Maya began to seek her out constantly. It was no longer just about late nights. It was a hand finding Clara's while they sat on the sofa watching a movie, fingers intertwining so naturally it felt like breathing. It was Maya, while cooking dinner together, reaching out to brush a stray strand of hair from Clara's face, her touch lingering for a fraction of a second too long, sending a jolt of pure electricity through Clara's skin. The casual had become constant. The arrangement had become their entire world. The conversations deepened, twisting into territory that made Clara's heart ache with a terrible, hopeful pain. "What do you think real love feels like?" Maya asked one evening, tracing idle patterns on the back of Clara's hand. They were on the floor, backs against the sofa, a half-empty bottle of wine between them. The question hung in the air, heavy and loaded. How could Clara possibly answer that? "It feels like this," she wanted to scream. "It feels like the weight of your head on my shoulder. It feels like the sound of your key in the lock. It feels like the specific way your eyes crinkle when you laugh, a map of joy I have memorized. It feels like an ache in my chest that is always, always there." Instead, she gave a safe, hollow answer. "I think it feels safe," Clara said, her voice careful. "Like you can be your entire, messy self and you don't have to hide any part of it. Like coming home." Maya grew quiet, her thumb stroking a slow circle over Clara's knuckles. "Coming home," she repeated, her voice a soft whisper. "I like that. I don't think I've ever felt that. With Liam, it always felt like I was playing a part. The good girlfriend. The easygoing one. It was exhausting." The unspoken comparison hung between them, a silent testament to what they were building. This wasn't a role. This wasn't exhausting. This was easy. Too easy. And that was the most terrifying part. Clara started to notice the little things, the shifts in Maya's gaze that betrayed a deeper current running beneath the surface of her carefully constructed casualness. She would catch Maya looking at her when she thought Clara wasn't paying attention. The expression wasn't one of friendship, or even desire in the way Clara had come to understand it. It was softer, more vulnerable. It was an expression of wonder, mixed with a profound confusion. One afternoon, as Clara was laughing at something on television, she turned her head and found Maya staring at her, her lips slightly parted. Maya's eyes weren't on Clara's eyes, but on her mouth. It was a fleeting moment, a barely perceptible drop of her gaze, but it felt like the world had tilted on its axis. As soon as their eyes met, Maya blushed a deep, startling crimson that spread across her cheeks, and looked away, suddenly intensely interested in the hem of her own sweater. That glance was a crack in the dam. For Clara, it let in a sliver of blinding, terrifying light. For Maya, it seemed to let out a flood of uncertainty she could no longer contain. The casual arrangement was becoming untenable for Clara. Her heart couldn't take the whiplash of holding everything she'd ever wanted and knowing it was built on a foundation of sand. The lie was eating her alive. She was a ghost in her own love story, a silent partner in a transaction where she was the only one who understood the true value of what was being exchanged. She needed distance. She needed to breathe air that wasn't saturated with Maya's scent, to remember who she was without Maya's hand in hers. So she did the only thing she could think of to save herself. She decided to try and live a life outside of their bubble. Sarah was a graphic designer from work. She was funny, sharp, and had asked Clara out for coffee a month ago. Clara had politely declined then, lost in the initial haze of her new, complicated reality with Maya. But now, the idea of a simple coffee date felt like a lifeline. An hour of conversation that wasn't laden with subtext. An hour of not being in love. She mentioned it as casually as she could, the word itself a bitter irony. They were in the kitchen, Maya leaning against the counter while Clara made tea. "Oh, by the way," Clara started, her back to Maya, busying herself with the kettle, her hands shaking slightly. "I have a coffee date on Saturday. With Sarah, from my office." Silence. It was not a comfortable silence. It was a sudden, dense vacuum that sucked all the air and warmth from the room. The cheerful whistling of the kettle sounded shrill and alien. Clara could feel Maya's eyes on her back, a physical pressure. She forced herself to remain calm, to pour the hot water over the tea bags as if her entire world wasn't holding its breath. Finally, she turned around, leaning back against the counter, clutching her mug like a shield. Maya hadn't moved, but her expression had undergone a seismic shift. The easy warmth was gone, replaced by something shuttered and cool. Her arms were crossed over her chest, a defensive posture Clara hadn't seen in months. "Oh," Maya said. The word was flat, devoid of any emotion. "That's nice." "Yeah," Clara said, her voice sounding too bright, too false. "Just coffee. It's no big deal." "Right," Maya said, her eyes dropping to the floor. "Casual." She used the word like a weapon, turning Clara's own logic against her. The rest of the evening was excruciating. Maya was distant, monosyllabic. The easy intimacy they had cultivated over the past 2 months evaporated, leaving a chilly, awkward space between them. When it was time for bed, Maya didn't follow Clara into her room. She mumbled a quiet good night and retreated to the guest room, a space she hadn't used since the first week after her breakup. The closed door felt like a physical blow. Clara lay in her bed, the empty space beside her feeling like a vast, cold canyon. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? Distance? A reinforcement of the lines? So why did it feel like she was suffocating? She had expected relief, but all she felt was a profound, gut-wrenching loss. The silence from the other room was louder than any argument. The next 2 days were a frozen hell. They moved around each other like polite, wary strangers. The air was thick with things unsaid. Clara's coffee date loomed, no longer a lifeline but a guillotine. She thought about canceling it a dozen times, but a stubborn, wounded part of her refused. Maya had set the terms. Clara was just trying to live by them. On Saturday morning, as Clara was getting ready, Maya appeared in the doorway of her bedroom. She was wearing an old, oversized sweatshirt, her hair a mess, her eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. She just stood there, watching Clara put on a pair of earrings. "So you're really going," Maya said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "Yes, Maya," Clara said, her voice gentle but firm. "It's just coffee. I don't like it." The words were so quiet, so raw, that Clara almost missed them. She stopped what she was doing and turned to face her fully. "What?" Maya took a hesitant step into the room. "I don't like it," she repeated, her voice stronger this time, laced with an emotion Clara couldn't quite identify. It sounded like anger, but looked like pain. "You, going on a date with someone else. I don't like it." Clara's heart began to hammer against her ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm. This was it. The point of no return. She could smooth it over, reassure her, and retreat back into their safe, painful bubble. Or she could push. She chose to push. "Why?" Clara asked, her own voice trembling now. "Why don't you like it, Maya? This is what you wanted. You were the one who said it. Let's keep it casual." She threw the words back at her, the shield, the cage. Maya flinched as if she'd been struck. Her carefully constructed composure finally shattered. Her eyes filled with tears, her bottom lip quivering. "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know I said that. And I was wrong. I was so wrong." She took another step closer, her hands twisting in the hem of her sweatshirt. "It doesn't feel casual, Clara. None of this feels casual. Not the way you hold me when I can't sleep. Not the way we talk for hours about nothing. Not the way your hand feels in mine." Her gaze was pleading, desperate. "The thought of you, having coffee with her, laughing with her, maybe her touching your hand." She choked on the words, a tear finally escaping and tracing a hot path down her cheek. "It makes me feel sick. It feels like my chest is caving in." Clara stood frozen, every nerve ending alight. This was jealousy. Raw, potent, undeniable jealousy. It was the most terrifying and most beautiful thing she had ever witnessed. "I was an idiot, Clara," Maya continued, her voice ragged. "I was so scared after Liam. I was scared of what I was feeling for you because it felt so much bigger than anything I'd ever felt before. It terrified me. So I tried to put it in a box. I tried to label it casual so it couldn't hurt me. So I couldn't hurt you. But all I did was hurt us both." She was standing right in front of Clara now, close enough that Clara could feel the heat radiating from her skin, could see the tiny flecks of gold in her tear-filled hazel eyes. The air crackled with 2 months of unspoken truths. I don't want it to be casual, Maya whispered, her eyes searching Clara's. I don't know what I want it to be exactly, but I know it isn't that. I know that the thought of anyone else being with you is unbearable. The confession hung in the space between them, a fragile, shimmering thing. It was Clara's turn. The fear was a cold knot in her stomach, the fear of laying her own heart bare after protecting it for so long. But looking at Maya's broken, open face, the fear was finally eclipsed by a different feeling. The feeling of coming home. Maya, Clara started, her voice thick with unshed tears of her own. It has never been casual for me. Not for a single second, the admission felt like letting go of a breath she'd been holding for 2 years. I have been in love with you for years. Every touch, every conversation, it's been heaven and it's been hell, all at once. I agreed to casual because I was so terrified of losing you completely. I would have taken any piece of you that you were willing to give me, even if it destroyed me. Maya's breath hitched. A look of profound, dawning understanding washed over her features. It was the look of someone seeing a landscape for the first time in full color after a lifetime of grayscale. She saw the years of quiet pining, the supportive smiles that masked a breaking heart, the patient friendship that was really a deep, abiding love. Oh, Clara, Maya breathed, her name a prayer. She raised a trembling hand, her fingers gently cupping Clara's jaw. Her touch was electric, a current that grounded Clara and set her alight all at once. All this time, Clara could only nod, leaning into the warmth of Maya's palm, a single tear of her own finally tracing a path of relief down her cheek. Maya's thumb stroked her skin, wiping the tear away. Her eyes dropped to Clara's lips, but this time, she didn't look away. Her gaze was steady, full of a question that made Clara's entire body tremble with anticipation. Can I? Maya's voice was barely audible, a fragile whisper. Can I kiss you, Clara? For real this time? Not casually. Not as an experiment. For real. Yes, Clara breathed out, the single word holding all the hope and longing she had suppressed for so long. Please. The space between them vanished. Maya's lips met hers, and it was nothing like the fumbling, exploratory kisses they had shared in the dark. This was different. It was hesitant at first, a soft, tentative question. A gentle pressure that asked, "Are you sure? Is this okay?" Clara answered by deepening the kiss, her hands coming up to tangle in the soft fabric of Maya's sweatshirt, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them at all. The hesitation melted away, replaced by a sudden, desperate urgency. It was a kiss of homecoming. It tasted of salt from their tears, of relief, of 2 months of unspoken feelings and 2 years of hidden love. It was a deep, searing connection that went beyond the physical, a silent conversation where their souls finally recognized each other without walls or labels. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless, resting their foreheads together. The world felt quiet, settled. The frantic energy had dissipated, leaving a profound sense of peace in its wake. Oh, Maya murmured, her eyes still closed. Her breath was warm against Clara's lips. Wow, Clara whispered back, a shaky laugh bubbling up from her chest. Maya opened her eyes, and the confusion was gone. In its place was a look of such clarity and adoration that it stole Clara's breath all over again. That felt, she started, trailing off as she searched for the word. Right, Clara finished for her. It felt right. Yeah, Maya agreed, a slow, radiant smile spreading across her face. Right, a shadow flickered in her eyes then, a hint of the fear that always accompanied a great shift. I'm terrified, Clara. Me too, Clara admitted, her voice steady despite the admission. I'm absolutely terrified. Of messing this up. Of what this means. What do we do? Maya asked, her vulnerability a beautiful, open thing. Clara looked at the woman in front of her, the woman she loved, who was finally, truly seeing her back. The fear was there, yes, but it was a distant hum beneath the overwhelming symphony of joy and relief. First, Clara said, a small smile playing on her lips. I think I need to cancel a coffee date. Maya's laugh was a sound of pure, unadulterated relief. It filled the room, chasing out the last of the shadows. She leaned in and kissed Clara again, this time soft and sure and full of promise. Later that day, curled up on the sofa in their familiar spot, but with a completely new understanding between them, Maya grew quiet. She was tracing the lines on Clara's palm, her expression thoughtful. "You know," she said softly, I think I knew for a long time. I just didn't have the language for it. When I was with Liam, I kept feeling like something was missing. Some kind of connection, some depth. I kept trying to force it, to make him into what I needed." She paused, lifting her eyes to meet Clara's. The realization was dawning, clear and bright. "I was measuring him against you, Clara. I was measuring our entire relationship against what I had with you, and it always came up short. He could never compete. I didn't understand what it meant until now. I think I broke up with him because he wasn't you." The confession settled into Clara's heart, not with a sense of triumph, but with a deep, healing rightness. It clicked all the pieces into place. All the late-night talks, the shared glances, the inexplicable pull she had always felt from Maya. It hadn't just been her. It had been both of them, all along, fumbling toward each other in the dark. "So we stopped pretending," Clara said, her voice full of a confidence she hadn't felt in years. "We stopped labeling things and being scared. We just try this. For real." "For real," Maya echoed, her hand tightening around Clara's. "One day at a time." 3 weeks later, Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the feeling of a warm body pressed against her back. An arm was draped possessively over her waist and soft, even breaths ghosted against her neck. She smiled before she even opened her eyes. This was their new normal, a rhythm so natural and easy it felt, as if they'd been doing it for a lifetime. She shifted slightly, and Maya stirred behind her, tightening her hold. "Morning," Maya mumbled into her hair, her voice thick with sleep. "Morning," Clara whispered back, tilting her head to kiss the hand that rested on her shoulder. There was no tension, no subtext, no careful negotiation of space. There was just this. A simple, profound peace. Maya pressed a soft kiss to her shoulder blade. "Remember when I told you to keep it casual?" she murmured. Clara smiled, a real, unburdened smile that reached her eyes. "Vaguely. It seems like a lifetime ago." "That was the single stupidest thing I have ever said in my entire life," Maya said, her voice a mix of amusement and genuine remorse. She rolled them both over so they were face to face, her hazel eyes soft and clear in the morning light. Clara reached up, brushing a thumb over Maya's cheek. "No," she said softly, her heart full to bursting. "It wasn't stupid. It was the only way you knew how to start. It was the clumsy, terrified, roundabout thing that got us here." She leaned in, capturing Maya's lips in a slow, sweet kiss. "And I'm exactly where I need to be." Maya smiled against her mouth, a smile of pure contentment. "Then we're both exactly where we need to be." In that quiet moment, wrapped in the warmth of their shared bed, Clara understood. The pain, the waiting, the years of silent longing, and the months of exquisite torture had not been for nothing. They were just the winding, difficult path that had finally led her home.